Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. We're going to have perspectives and we're going to have personalities this morning. But before we go into my usual business of kudos for somebody or some organization in the community, the old fellow wants to rant and rave just a minute about the impending death of a dear friend that all of us in this country need, common sense. This came about because I saw a newscast last night, and I only got the newscast, so that's all we had to work on. But in some church somewhere, some expectant mother appeared and opted not to wear a mask in church, as most of us will do. Common practice. For whatever reason, she opted not to, and she had some words with the priest. The priest called a policeman, and 2 policemen came into the church during the service and took the lady out. Common sense. We've just lost common sense, and we all saw this business of a little old 60-some-year-old Asian lady walking down the streets, and some dude came along behind her and whacked her and knocked her down. And people inside the door just kind of looked out to, oh, well, what's that? Ignored. Common sense. So we bow our head in the loss of common sense, and there will be no visitation. Social distancing will be enforced. Really, I worry. Of course, any day of the week, and that would include 7 days, the Sabbath, you can find a lack of common sense out there in Washington, D.C. All parties involved. Go right ahead and introduce our guest, will you, please?
On that sour note. Hi. We've got 2 really fine guests
you got
today,
that
I'm
right.
proud to
Exactly.
say.
Exactly.
We have Police Chief of the City of Lincoln, America, Paul Adams, and with him is his friend Matt Vlahovich. Now that's spelled M-A-T-T, and do the best you can with Vlahovich.
Common spelling.
Believe it or not, I can spell that. Having been neighbors of the Vlahovich family for a number of years on Grand Avenue, and an excellent family.
Well, obviously, look what they turned out there.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Let's get down to business, guys.
Yeah. We were talking before the program, and Chief, you brought up an act that our illustrious leaders have passed, trying to help you in law enforcement along your way. It happens a lot of times, doesn't it?
Unfortunately,
at every level. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then we plain people who rise up and say that we should defund the police. That always makes me just shake my head.
That comes out of the head of common sense dead.
Well, yeah, really. Yeah. My gracious. Well, this is called the Safety Act. And that's certainly helping you in your profession, isn't it, gentlemen? Not so much.
The silence should be deafening.
Yeah. Matthew's going to be the tall, quiet one.
Sometimes if you have nothing to say, it's best to say nothing at all, isn't it, Matt?
It just confounds me. It
confounds. I have plenty to say. It's just, I don't think we have enough time this morning.
Now, how come we, speaking of the lack of common sense, pass these laws and ordinances and things right along that just hamper law enforcement? And there are some people among us who unfortunately live their life in such a way that they have to meet with you fellas periodically.
Well, this law wasn't necessarily brought about in the most efficient manner. Efficient, I guess, for them because they pushed it through in the lame duck session in the middle of the night. So a lot of law enforcement organizations didn't have any time to respond or to put their 2 cents into this. It was just kind of shoved through as quickly as possible by a lot of legislatures in the Chicagoland area.
Next week, sitting in those 2 chairs, we'll have 2 people for whom we have the same respect as we do, and that would be Tim Butler and Senator Sally Turner. They're going to be our guest, and we'll be grilling them about that. Seriously, feature. Tell us the really stupid features of that law, Chief.
Well,
if not all of them.
You got notes?
I brought notes.
Go for it.
Go right ahead.
Sure?
Yeah.
He's got it right there in black and white, haven't you?
Well, when was it? Yearly we have mandates to meet for as far as training. Every police officer does.
Of course.
And they're state mandated. One of our prominent instructors, Don Hayes, a couple weeks ago, we sat in on a Zoom conference with Don Hayes. Don Hayes is an attorney, works in Springfield, and I think he was an attorney for the appellate prosecutor's office for a number of years. He might have been a state's attorney. He now teaches and follows the legislature, and he teaches police on legal updates, law and legal updates. So we're very familiar with Don. Everybody knows who Don is. He's travels around central Illinois and teaches cops about law updates, and we have to go through that yearly. So last week, 2 weeks ago, we sat in on a Zoom call with Don Hayes, and it was a couple hours long. And mind you, this new bill, this Safety Act, is over 750 pages long.
Most of it unread by the guys who voted for it.
Absolutely. When you pass it through the House at 4:46 a.m. and then it goes back, or the Senate passed it at 4:46, and then it went back to the House for more amendments and changes, and then they passed. They only had it until 11 a.m. that day that they passed it, and they passed it just before 11 a.m.
Oofta. You know, that's just wrong.
Yes.
In the first place, there is nothing in the world that takes 750 pages. John Grisham doesn't need 750 pages.
He's a great author, by the way.
One of the bill sponsors couldn't even answer questions about the elements of the law.
I'm sure. Who'd know 750 pages?
But yet they passed it.
Go figure. Whence cometh the idea to even start this law? Somebody's got to start putting the pen to the pencil to a paper and start writing. And you got to wonder what. So, the bad features of it.
Well, because it's such a long law.
They're mostly bad features, I guess.
Because it's such a long law, Don Hayes's, where I was headed with that, Don Hayes's summary, just a summary of this law to teach us in 2 hours, was 95 pages.
Oofta.
And he couldn't get through all 95 pages in 2 hours.
Nope. Yeah.
A lot of the bad things in it,
it goes
standardized statewide use of force mandates. What that means is we're all going to have to follow along with the exact same standardization with regards to our use of force. There's 8 articles, but I don't understand them because he went into the 10th and 12th article when he was teaching us about it.
The guys that voted on it didn't understand it.
No, they did not.
Well, they couldn't possibly.
Prisoner handling and changing to living quarters for prisoners and the way you transport them. In custody deaths and reporting requirements, and then there's a whole slew of FOIA stipulations that you have to adhere to. That's not so much for us, that would be for Mark Landers at the jail and his jail staff. Constitutional rights and remedies. There's no such thing as a dead bill in Illinois.
They can resurrect them?
Oh, yeah. Well, the way he explained it was the elephant theory.
How's that?
They started with this gigantic law, and at the last second, or the last hours of them getting ready to pass this, they had several elements in that law that we absolutely did not like. One being taking away our qualified immunity, the other being we couldn't collectively bargain.
Discipline and stuff.
We couldn't collectively bargain discipline, and then there was some language in there with regards to anonymous complaints against police officers. So they removed that out of this law before they passed it. However, the way Don explained it was, Illinois is notorious for introducing this gigantic elephant that we have to eat. Well, he explained, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So they got this big, over 750 pages passed. The law passed, and now the new General Assembly is in, and so what they didn't get prior to, now they're coming after again.
So they're going to come after qualified immunity.
One bite at a time.
It seems to me like old Bill Shakespeare, the great author, made a comment about that, and the title of that was a play called Much Ado About Nothing. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, I realize I'm prejudiced, but a lot of the stuff that comes out of that Capitol or legislative halls down there, any legislative hall for that matter, in all 50 states, has much to do about nothing. Somebody just got to burn their saddle somewhere, and it has no clue with common sense and reality. So.
Can you put your finger at all on what happened? Because a long, long time ago, when I was young,
well, that was a long time ago.
It was. Ancient times. Back in the Dark Ages. I guess it was the Dark Ages. Man, we thought policemen walked on water. Boy, I tell you, when you saw one, you kind of figured you were having a good day.
You genuflected even if you weren't Catholic.
Huh?
You genuflected even if you weren't Catholic.
Yeah, really. Really. And then a time went by, and then we decided we're going to... And this just absolutely blows my mind. Defund the police. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't have to watch the news a lot to see that things are going bad in a lot of areas in this country and in this world. And you're talking about defunding the police?
Yeah.
Holy Friday. What kind? Well, almost it is Holy Friday.
That's the premise of this law.
Well, yeah, you almost made it to Holy Friday.
Yeah.
The bad thing is there is so many new mandates that came through. So like body-worn cameras, we got to have body-worn cameras.
And that's
for
expensive.
Our agency. Yeah, we have to have it by 2025. But I've gotten the quotes. It's we're looking over $100,000 for body cameras and storage.
For Lincoln, Illinois.
For Lincoln, Illinois.
Oh, that ought to put a chip in the budget.
That just flies in the sense of common sense.
And that's the thing is, body-worn cameras, I don't believe in my IT experience that they've caught up to where they need to be yet. Because video storage, and Jim can attest to it, it takes a lot of room to store video. It does, because you're essentially taking 60 frames per second of a photograph and storing it. And these videos are high resolution because you can't do low resolution because you need all the detail in it.
Right.
So it just takes up a lot of room. And so the storage of that is going to cost us $20,000 a year, even after we get it going. So I mean, it's I don't know. It's a mandate by the state, and they're not going to fund it. They have a camera grant. They'll give us $895 per device, but that's it.
They're not chipping in on the storage or anything.
No,
thank you.
No.
$95 to pay for the carrying strap, for goodness sake.
Exactly.
Gentlemen, we see so much, and unfortunately, it's so in the larger cities, I guess. Do we have a lack of respect for the blue in our small communities, such as here in Lincoln?
I don't believe so. I mean, you have the criminal element that doesn't like us. They don't like us and never will like us.
Day,
Well, you're their nemesis. That's what you're paid for.
That's any given.
Yeah.
But basically,
good and evil don't get to go together.
Day in, day out, you're out on the street and you meet respect, I would hope.
Yeah, not all. We get thank yous and kudos, and the officers, if they're in a drive up and the person ahead usually pay for his meal behind them. It's really great that the support that we get from our community.
Well, that's
here, and I don't believe we have an issue downstate. Yeah. If you look at all the senators that voted for this bill, they're all in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Peoria and Champaign was the two outliers, but everybody else, if Chicago's is essentially shoving this down our throat. So, to put it bluntly.
When there's an opening in a police department in one of the cities in central Illinois, Are there many applicants? Are there as many as there used to be for an opening?
That's the next problem we have. Currently, we have lateral applications open. So if you've worked 2 years at another agency, you can essentially lateral over to us and come in at a little bit better pay than you would as a new hire, because we don't have to put you all through all the training that's required for a new hire. I've had it out for 2 months now, and we've had 2 applicants.
Is that right?
Yeah. Before, I'd get 10 applicants.
The last list that we just exhausted only had 1.
Yeah.
Is your TO full? Do you have a full complement?
No. We're down one right now.
We're short-handed now.
We're short-handed now.
And then Sergeant Dave Oldmans is going to retire here in May, so we're going to be 2 down. So, and then even I checked the, just yesterday I checked the academy, and all the academies are full with no waiting list right now. So even if I were to hire a new person, I can't even get them in until next year.
Isn't that something? And in the olden days, when I was young, I think my brothers and most of the little boys were kind of waffling between, shall I be a policeman or a fireman?
Oh yeah. In 1992, when I applied for the Illinois State Police, we had over 2,000 applicants. Now they can barely fill a class.
Isn't that something?
So they're stealing from other agencies. Sure. They did a fast track to help get guys through, and they can't even fill that class because nobody wants to move around.
But you don't meet, or certainly at least not regularly, with disrespect.
No.
Here, do you?
No.
Please.
No, we have a very supportive community for the police and firemen and first responders.
Well, there's part of the reason for that
nurses
is
and doctors.
It comes from the top down through you gentlemen. I think people here on the street recognize that we have a police department that's doing a great. Listen, I'm not driving very much, so I'm not worried about tickets. I'm not worried about. So I'm not trying to avoid tickets. Seriously, and I mean very seriously. I think people recognize that we have, number one, have a budget problem. And that's really number one.
Oh yeah.
And besides that, they know that the police that we have working for us, and I use those 2 words, for us, because that's what they're doing, are doing the best of their ability and performing within the range of constraint as far as the money available is concerned. So I'd like to think that as they go about their duty, people kind of get swept a little scoot once in a while as they drive by, even though they're not seen. I do that all the time, fellas. I want you to know that.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
Bill's
that.
a cut above, though. You know that.
Well, we've done a great job at trying to keep our costs down over the years. You know, trying to figure out better ways to get equipment without costing the city money. I mean, just for instance, you know, he's deputy chief. He does a lot of good with local service dealer or servicemen for vehicles and stuff like that. So he really kept our costs down. Plus, we're trying to get our cars replaced in a manner which we will have equity when we trade them in, so it's going to cost less later as we get that rotation going. So we've done a really good job at that, and I want to give kudos to all our guys too, because they, you know, when I ask them to do training, etc., they do it. We recently were awarded a gold status by Lexipol. Lexipol is our policy management system that we use. They help us with keeping our policy up to date, any new laws that come out, like this new law. They have a team of lawyers working on policies for us, so I don't have to try to figure it out as much as I normally would. I just have to maybe amend it for our department, but that policy manual comes with training for the officers daily, so they come in when they're doing their shift briefs, they can sit down and go over this policy manual, and they actually trained on the policy. So they're given a scenario, they have to answer the questions, and then the system will give them credit for doing that training. And all the guys are doing the training. They're all being kept up to date for the last year. So we got gold status because all of our guys are doing what we're supposed to be doing. All our policies are out there. So we are doing it by the book. So
one of the things Judy and I have been instructed to do as far as our training is concerned, we try to bring our sponsors on at a reasonable time. And every Wednesday we kind of mess that up a little bit. So go right ahead, Mr. Ash. Live in the studios here at WLCN 96.3, high on the hill here at County Road 2250. Program, of course, is Viewpoint, appearing each Wednesday morning, 0815 to 0900 hours. We have a couple of special guests, and I'm going to pass the baton to my co-partner, Mrs. Busby.
I thought you forgot my name. Good old what's her name?
Well, I stumbled there for a second.
I keep seeing articles in the paper about this cash or no cash bail. Since I've so far been lucky and never had to come up with any bail, I didn't know that it was or wasn't an option. So what do you think?
The law made it no option.
No option.
No option. And to tell you the truth, there is some... The reason they put that together is because you do have some people that can't afford to get out of jail. And you have some people that can get out of jail. Because, for instance, if I arrested you, you may have enough to post, but somebody that maybe doesn't have enough money, doesn't have that, but under the same charge would have to sit in jail until their trial. So they may be there for 6 months to a year, where you were already out and walking the street until you were actually convicted and then sent to jail. So there's some understanding. Well, except we both
shouldn't have done that in the first place.
Technically, yes.
Bingo, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's right. I don't like that law. How do you feel?
Well, the problem is the way they have it structured. So essentially, if I arrest you for a crime, I can take you to the jail. We will book you and photograph you like we always have, but then you are set free with no cash bail. The only way that we can hold you then at that point is we have to prove that you're a threat to a specific person or persons in court. So we have to have a trial on if I can, in fact, hold you. And that has to be done within 48 hours?
48 hours of your arrest. So the burden of proof comes back on us and the state's attorney to prove to a judge that you
were naughty.
Not only naughty, but you pose a threat to someone or several people. And if you are released, the new term now is called pre-trial release instead of bond or bail, we have to prove that you're a detriment to society. And then the judge, whatever judge you see, will make that determination.
Well, it just seems to me that we're kind of leaning toward mollycoddling people who did, getting back to we shouldn't have done it to begin with.
Mm-hmm. Well, for instance, so if somebody burglarizes your home, you said earlier you've been burglarized several times. If we catch that person, and burglaries are kind of hard to catch, I mean, usually it's done in the middle of the night. No, we don't have any witnesses, so we usually have to end up waiting on fingerprints or DNA or some type of physical evidence that ties you to that. A lot of people are getting cameras on their homes. Those rings help a lot. But if we make the arrest, we book them and we set them back free.
So it's always Captain May I, huh?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You got the person red-handed, but not so much.
Welcome back.
And that includes major drug offenses.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, say, excuse me, my mind is not, when it works at all, it just kind of jumps around. How's that problem coming along in our community?
It's not getting any better, I can tell you that much.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Would you say,
especially with the borders open now, right now, you've got so much more money and drugs going right back and forth over that border, so it's just only going to get worse.
How about all this border business? Do you think that's going to up the ante pretty much on availability?
Yeah, oh, without a doubt. I mean, it just recently, the Illinois State Police made a $1 million seizure on the interstate. So I mean, the money.
$1 million?
Yeah. So if $1 million is traveling up and down the old interstate here, back and forth, the drugs are coming here. So the biggest people that are going to profit from this bill is the gangs in the bigger cities.
Is who?
The gangs in the bigger cities.
Big city.
Because we won't be able to keep them in jail. They'll be right back out.
And gone.
Well, and you're lucky if you can even put them there, because after all, we have to respect their rights.
So let's say they get arrested and take them to jail. They get processed, they get booked, they get let right out the back door, and what they get let out with is simply a notice to appear in court. So 30 days from their arrest date, usually, they should show back up in court. They don't show up in court in 30 days. A warrant is issued under this new provision. Let's say we catch that person on that warrant. We don't take to jail again. We just issue another court date.
Oh, you just say, oh, excuse me, I bet you
Correct.
forgot.
Yes. That can happen up to 3 times. So when that does come into effect, it's just going to back up the court system.
So if you weigh the both of us, Matt, I've got a lot more rights than you have, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
We're just the same.
648-5510. Somebody might have a question. I'll be very nice to them because they've got their spies out there. No, seriously, I want to be very serious about this. Somebody may have a question of Matthew Vlahovich and our Chief Paul Adams, who have been kind enough to give us some time this morning to come up and talk to you about the problems, and I think I use the word problems plural very properly. I'd hate to be a policeman on the streets today. Number one, I'm not big enough, but notwithstanding, even if I was as big as either one of these gentlemen, that's a thankless job, and we need to bear that in mind, folks. This is maybe Lincoln, Illinois, but we still have our dangers present here every day. So somebody may have a question and or a comment. If you want to compliment them, that's fine. You can hide behind that. We won't find out who it is. In any event, we have a question here, sir. Any other state have cash bail, or is Illinois the only one? You know?
New York, I believe, has no cash bail.
There's a few states that have this no cash bail system in place.
In place now.
And it's a new concept. This law, this Safety Act, I think is just a continuation of the defund the police movement. Those states that do have this in effect have found that it doesn't work, and they're scrambling to reel it back in.
Well, thank God we decided to follow it then. There's a plan.
In fact, Chief and I, we could watch that law, this Safety Act, being debated on the floor, and we watched the vote, how the legislators voted live. And prior to the legislature taking the vote to enact this law, he was the sponsoring, I believe it was the senator, wasn't it? Sponsoring.
That was Representative Slaughter.
Representative Slaughter took several questions, and one of those questions was, knowing that there are a few other states across the country that have this no cash bail system, and now they're scrambling to try to reel it back in, why would you pass it here? And he had no
answer,
viable explanation for that.
I wonder.
So instead of implementing it right now, his explanation was, well, we have 3 years to fix it because this doesn't take effect till 2023. Why? Well, again, like we said, this was shoved through in the middle of the morning, and nobody had the chance to have any input on this, and it was shoved through on the lame duck section, so it was easy for them to just get it through.
As the famous Mrs. Pelosi said, we have to read this so we can understand what's in it.
And we have to pass it first so we can see what's in the law.
Not read it. I meant pass it. Thank you, sir. Does the associated police departments, municipal police departments, they have a lobby with our legislatures down there as a unit?
The Illinois Chiefs Association has had talks with Senator Sims, who's one of the people who presented the bill. They supposedly had good conversations, because Mr. Sims didn't understand how things necessarily worked in law enforcement. So we explained it to them. He supposedly was receptive to maybe presenting some changes, but that was just what he said to the Illinois Chiefs. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. So the Illinois Sheriff's Association is also working on things when it comes to bail reform. The State's Attorneys Association is working on things. Even the Circuit Clerks Association is working on certain parts of the bill that affected them, because this affects all the judicial system because of the bail reform, the mandates on us, the training mandates, the new decertification. I mean, there's two different definitions in there for decertification. I mean, it's a mess.
So what do you do? Pick your choose?
Well, yeah, that's the Illinois Chiefs are working on what we can as the chiefs to fix the things that affect us personally, and then the Sheriff's Association is doing the same thing. So we're all kind of picking and choosing, but we also have a coalition working on the bill in and of itself. So hopefully we can have a trailer bill that will fix a lot of these issues, hopefully sooner than later. Because I don't even want to, for instance, I don't want to even put body cameras out there, because right now, according to the law, you can't watch your body camera until your report is done. They put in the new law that your report has to have every fact and circumstance that the officer saw or heard that day. And if he leaves anything out, then he will be charged with official misconduct. If you watch your body cam before you do the report, you'll be charged with official misconduct. So it's kind of a catch-22. We can't make sure we have everything, but yet we're expected to have everything. And I'll tell you right now, we can't remember everything.
Don't talk to me about that.
I'd like to ask a question, or questions plural, of Matthew Vlahovich. He came prepared this morning with the treasure trove of notes, and I'm going to pass the baton to him and let him take the lead for us.
I'll just go real quick through this summary of this law.
This is the safety law. The
safety law, the Safety Act, the excessive use of force. If we are deemed to use excessive force in any incident, we no longer have any immunities. The plaintiff can sue us for damages not only in federal court but also in state court. And what that will cause, the cause of that, we will in turn have to have personal liability insurance, and that's so expensive. Far we can't find any insurance company
that would do it,
underwrite it.
Jeez, I mean, they put you right. So it would
almost be, I think it's even worse, but it's almost, the concept would be a malpractice insurance, for like what doctors have.
Now, you mentioned the word excessive force.
I get it.
It's inevitable on any given situation when there's an arrest being made, whether it's in somebody's home or on the street or wherever, that it's quite possible that it's necessary and quite probable that it's necessary to use force. Now, how do you define excessive force, for God's sakes? You know, this famous case that's on the air right now, when that ends, it's going to be a bad scene for somebody in Minneapolis. It's just not going to be a very happy. In any event, that's neither here nor there. How do you define excessive force? You're a big man, you get your knee in the middle of my back. Is that excessive force? It depends. I may have some sort of a lethal instrument.
Excessive force will be defined by juries, is what it's going to boil down to. So
by what?
By juries.
So you'll file a complaint. essentially sue the city and the officer involved, and it'll have to go to a jury, and the jury will have to decide if the officer used excessive force.
Well, there's a problem because you have 12 men and ladies, true, doing the job that they have been brought in off the street to serve on a jury. You might have 12 different opinions. Was it excessive force?
Well, and those 12 jurors may have no knowledge of how we do things in law enforcement. For instance, a lot of people think that the taser shouldn't be used unless it's more of a deadly force situation, and actually our insurance company and what we tell the officers is, I want you to use the taser before you actually go hands-on with somebody. Because if you go hands-on with somebody, then you or the individual is more than likely going to get hurt. But a taser incapacitates them, so we can have that 5 seconds to put the cuffs on, so we don't have to do that.
Yeah.
So ergo, what's wrong with a taser?
Nothing.
I mean, it's...
Well, it's been painted, though, as a torture device. Now, are there residual effects if you tasered me?
No residual.
Well, then,
it hurts really bad for 5 seconds, and then as soon as it's shut off...
Well, that's just to get your attention.
It hurts really bad.
I wouldn't say it even hurts. It's a very uncomfortable. What it does is it seizes the muscles in between the two probes. So if you have a good spread, there's going to be more muscles. But if it's a small spread, because you have two darts that go out, one dart, between the two probes, it'll seize those muscles up. So like we've had several instances that we've saved people's lives because of a taser. You know, the person was going at somebody with a knife, the officer was behind him, tased him, put him down.
Yeah.
It was a simple thing. They got him under arrest, nobody got hurt, everybody went home that day.
Well, why can't they look at both sides of things? That it can be such a positive thing. Because they just decided it's not good. There's
media out there that's painting it in the inappropriate light, essentially.
Is social media your friend, Chief?
No, it's not. No, not at all.
And that's what spawned this.
Yeah. Oof.
Mr. Vlahovich, as you dress for work in the morning, always looking smart, coming off the pages looking real good, and I'm not trying to be facetious here at all. What thoughts goes to your mind as you prepare to go to work each day?
One day at a time.
One day at a time.
One day at a time until retirement. One day at a time, come home.
Do the best I know how. Do the best I know how. And you know, that's kind of a sad commentary because Mr. Vlahovich used two words there, and come home. It's the truth that our men in blue don't know every day they walk out of their house at what time they'll go back through the door, or if they'll go back through the door, even in a small community like Lincoln, Illinois. So I mention that with emphasis because I think we deserve, we need to observe that fact and throw a salute to these gentlemen. Chief, budget problems. Has the move to 5th Street, which I thought was a great move, has that helped or hindered you as far as daily activities are concerned?
I believe it's helped us because we've taken out a lot of the issues that we had when we were crammed into this space with the sheriff's office. So you got the separate areas now that the officers can do their jobs safely and effectively. Before we didn't have that space to be able to get the equipment.
Badly crowded.
Oh yeah, it was really bad. So the guys appreciate the new building, and we appreciate the new building, and it's worked out well for training and et cetera, because we just had we're doing training in-house now where we're teaching defensive tactics to the guys. We had the room to spread out all these mats and train 20 guys that day, so it's worked out well.
How many people are on the police force right now?
Right now, we are up to 20. I have room for 28, but we are at 27 right now because we still have one hire right now.
And do you have complete authority over the hiring?
No, the hiring comes from our Fire and Police Commission.
Civil Service Commission of some
it's
sort?
Fire and Police Commission, yeah. They're the ones that do all the hiring for us. So they propose the list. I just have to get the council's approval to hire from those lists that are provided, so.
Do you have any depth as far as a pool to go to for hiring?
No, that's what I was just saying.
Nobody.
This right now. Here's my advertisement, but we've got lateral applications open right now. So if anybody knows a police officer that would like to move to this area, we've got a lot of great things going on here. We have a new facility. We have probably some of the best equipment. We get paid decently for this area. I encourage you guys to move over to our department, and this fall we will have the new hire applications coming in too, so look forward to that.
Matthew Vlahovich, who is wearing a blue ribbon over his badge, appropriately so. You want to explain that, sir?
State trooper was killed recently.
Yes. Yeah.
In honor of a state trooper killed.
Yes, and when's he being laid to rest? Wednesday? Today or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Well, it's appropriate. It's appropriate. And Chief Paul Adams, we appreciate you and Matthew being with us this morning, giving us your time. One thing about it, folks, you need to know, when Mrs. Busby comes up with an idea for a guest, like Chief Adams, there's no problem. He just has to find time on his schedule. And so he takes time for that. And Matthew, we appreciate your giving your time this morning. This could be, you could be parked at Old Joe's somewhere.
Maybe later.
Thank you for Viewpoint, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.